If you guys know the US Navy, you know they have the highest budget amongst other navies, and they spend a lot of money in every field. And in each Navy ship class, they have the most amount of ships. One of the most important classes are the Navy destroyers, and they're responsible for most of the missions. In this clip, we want to talk about the most advanced destroyer the US has ever built. USS Zumwalt, a destroyer that looks like no other destroyer you've ever seen. The Zumwalt is the biggest and most advanced destroyer in the world. One of the main reasons it's designed like this, so the radar does not pick it up. In the year 1994, the Pentagon announced that they're looking for a new Navy destroyer, and we have a $1.3 billion budget for each of these ships. They eventually worked with a company called BIW, or Bath Iron Works, to complete this project. 11 years later, by the year 2005, the destroyers aren't ready yet, and BIW is requesting more money to finish the project, and they said each of these destroyers will cost about $3 billion. Obviously, the government was not happy about this price increase, but for them to build something extremely advanced, they had to get the funding for it. After accepting the price request, the government said make 24 of them. When the government calculated the price, they realized that 24 is way too many and they don't need it. So they contacted BIW and said make it 7. When the US government accepts the $3 billion each price point, BIW continues on the project. When we get to 2011, the first USS Zumwalt is ready to go. These contracts for the military don't really have a price point exactly in mind, and it could always increase. And that is why when the first Zumwalt was finished, BIW announces to the government that this one will cost $4.5 billion, and the rest of the Zumwalts will cost that amount. There are two advanced gun systems called the AGS 155mm, and it has a range of about 150 kilometers. It's extremely accurate and it's very fast, but one of the biggest issues it has is that each round will cost about $1 million. Having a weapon system like this on a destroyer is extremely important because launching a missile will take a lot of time, but this gun will shoot up to 150 kilometers extremely quickly. The gun's first priority is to protect the ship itself. It's an extremely expensive destroyer. It could easily be seen, and it's a huge target for the enemy. That is why, for its defense system, these cannons are very important. This ship has all types of missiles, from submarine missiles, surface-to-air, and cruise missiles. It could haul a nuclear warhead as well, but obviously they're not allowed to have nuclear weapons on a destroyer because it's against international laws. The first Zumwalt was finished at $4.5 billion, but the next two, that's when Bath Iron Works raised the price once again, and the other two cost $5.9 billion each. You could say Pentagon paid them and told them we don't need any more, and they canceled the program after 3 ships. When you look at this ship in the sea, you think it's not that big, but it's not that small. It's more than 600 feet, and its width is about 100 feet. This ship has about 175 employees, and their lives are very similar to the employees of an aircraft carrier, which we've made a video on. But an aircraft carrier could have more than 6,000 personnel, but this has 175. Each person has their bed and a little space to work. Just like submarines and aircraft carrier, the food is not that good either, and you could consider them canned foods. One of the reasons they can't have fresh food is that these destroyers and ships can't go to the port often, and that is why the food cannot be very good or fresh. They should at least have some guys fishing for the crew, but that would never work. Just like we said, this is the most advanced destroyer, and that is why it has sensors and cameras everywhere. This allows the captain and operator to perfectly see around the ship and steer this giant thing with ease. This ship was designed like a pickup truck, and for that reason, it has the biggest deck out of any destroyer in the world. Another interesting fact about the design of the Zumwalt is that it's very aerodynamic, and that allows it to use less fuel. It also cuts the water very well, so it's not only aerodynamic, but the water flows easily around it as well. And that is why this destroyer could almost go 40 miles an hour, and that's one of the fastest destroyers in the world. These are those $1 million rounds we were talking about, and it drops the shell after it's shot. When this is being shot, nobody is allowed on the deck, and the ammunition is added from the bottom. Destroyers usually don't travel alone, and Zumwalt is the same thing. They're usually in a group, but don't expect them to always be this close to each other. This is for photo shoots, and if they're always like this, there is a chance of crashing into each other if there is high winds. These groups are very far from another, but they're close at the same time, and they watch out for each other. As you know, the biggest and most expensive ships in the Navy are the carriers, and these guys are dependent on the destroyers to keep them safe. The Zumwalt could also watch out for carriers. What kind of a fuel does this ship use? They wanted to use quote-unquote clean energy, and that's why they chose natural gas. It has 4 giant gas turbine engines made by Rolls-Royce, and these motors are connected to electric motors that power the ship, not only the impellers, but the entire ship itself. This was an interesting ship, wasn't it? But experts that study in this field called the USS Zumwalt a failure. They believe the amount of money that was spent on this ship was not worth it at all. First of all, the fuel is gas when it could have been nuclear. There are thousands of different sensors on the ship to make the operator's job easier, but in the end it actually makes it harder for them, because instead of actually doing work, they have to bring technicians to fix these sensors. Instead of the personnel doing job for the Navy, they have to do maintenance on a brand new ship, which is not good. When this ship is flowing through the seas of the world, it costs more than any other ship, and this is another problem with the USS Zumwalt. Another problem are these rounds that cost $1 million. There's a joke going around that every time you fire the AGS system, you basically blow up 3 Ferraris. In conclusion, this project is considered a failure. And if you read about news and articles that are written by the Zumwalt class destroyers, you'll see that it always says failed. It's not like it breaks down or falls apart in the ocean, but it's extremely expensive to maintain, and it's just a hassle. What do you guys think? Please comment.